And joining us now to discuss this further, Mr. Meir Javedanfar, Iran lecturer at the Reichman University. Thank you, Mr. Javedanfar, for your time. So it's the first time Moscow is making this linkage between the situation in Ukraine to the nuclear talks in Vienna, and at not so peculiar timing. Well, the Israeli Prime Minister was on the plane en route to Moscow. What do you make of it?
Well, I don't have anything to prove at this point, but this could be yet another Israeli-Russian give-and-take cooperation in order to serve their interests, and it's at the expense of Iran. We see it already happening in Syria, the cooperation between Israel and Russia over the reported Israeli attacks. And now we could be seeing it over the nuclear program, the nuclear talks. It's not in Russia's interest right now for the talks to be resolved, and then for the Americans and for the British and for the other Europeans and the Chinese to come and reap the economic benefits of post-sanctions Iran while Russia stays out. And it's not for the state. It's not in the interest of the state of Israel right now for the talks to be concluded, for reasons that Mr. Naftali Bennett has addressed many times. So there could be linkage here. I mean, it could be coincidence. I don't know, to be honest with you, but there could be a linkage here. But what I can tell you with more authority here is that the Russians are using their sphere of influence in the Middle East, which is Iran, and their leverage that they have in the nuclear talks, in order to protect their sphere of influence in Europe, which is Ukraine. The Russians are very worried about the sanctions being imposed upon them by Ukraine, because of Ukraine. So they want to use their leverage over Iran in order to protect their economy, which is being assaulted at this point, the way they see it, by the Ukraine-related sanctions.
Right, and Meir, the status of talks was somewhat pushed sideways in recent days due to the news coming out of Ukraine, but the IAEA chief Grossi is in Tehran this weekend to try and smooth over all the remaining sticking points. What can you tell us?
Well, one thing I can tell you is that everybody calling Mr. Biden a pushover it now owes us an apology, because we see Rafael Grossi, unlike his predecessor, is not giving Iran at the end of the day a free pass over the possible military dimension. He's standing by his demand, and he's saying that there will be no deal unless Iran clarifies what it was doing at that carpet warehouse outside of Tehran, Torqozabad. In the previous deal, the Americans said, okay, let's just put this issue aside. Yes, Iran did violate its NPT obligations by researching into weapons, but we will close that file and we will look forward to the future. This time, Rafael Grossi is not looking forward to the future. He wants this issue resolved. He was in Tehran. Apparently, he came away with with a timetable, and we're going to have to see what happens, whether the two sides, whether Iran and the IAEA can cooperate. But how long that takes really depends. I mean, in the space of 2 or 3 months' time, I mean, right now Iran has 2/3 of the highly enriched uranium it needs to make a nuclear weapon. I mean, in a while, this whole issue of talks could, as the clock ticks, could become null and void.
Right, and obviously all different arenas profoundly intertwined, perhaps, as always. Mr. Meir Javedanfar, Iran lecturer at the Reichman University, thank you very much for your input.